Hello there, I'm McCabe, this is channel for anything and everything, and the anti-vaccine movement should be stopped. More and more parents are rejecting immunization for their children without regard to scientific evidence and based more so on the mass media. So just as review, a vaccine improves immunity to certain diseases, often made from weakened or killed forms of the disease. And it's kind of like an antivirus program on a computer which records and destroys any kind of virus that the computer gets. Vaccines are an incredible part of medical advancement. Take for example, in the US in 1958, there were over 760,000 cases of the measles. After a measles vaccine was implemented, the number of cases dropped to around 50 per year. And in 2008, there were 64 cases of measles in the US, and around 63 of those were from people who either didn't have the vaccine or didn't know if they had it. The anti-vaccine movement initially started due to a fraudulent paper written by Andrew Wakefield in 1998, published in a British medical journal called The Lancet. The paper said that there was a causal link between the MMR vaccine and autism. The study focused on 12 children, 8 of which their parents had said their children had some form of autism happening soon after they had been injected with the MMR vaccine, which is for measles, mumps, and rubella. Now, 12 years later, this paper was finally retracted from the journal due to criticisms of Wakefield's small sample size of only 12 kids. He also had no controls and was trying to link 3 different conditions based solely on what the parents could recall. Eventually, this study was found to be an elaborate fraud, and there was a massive conflict of interest because Wakefield was involved with a lawsuit against the vaccine's manufacturer. Since the beginning of the anti-vaccine movement, there has been no scientific evidence to prove a link between autism and vaccines, and people are starting to just freak out with no scientific evidence, saying, "Oh no, my child might get autism from getting a vaccine that could prevent a horrible disease," because different media outlets happen to get the very famous celebrities who are outspoken about this, saying that their child has autism, namely the Playboy bunny Jenny McCarthy or Jim Carrey or other celebrities. And while they're not scientists or researchers of any sort and they don't have any scientific background, people are believing them, and it's awful. And so all of you anti-vaccine movement followers out there, screw you. You're screwing everybody over. There's no scientific evidence showing that your kid is going to get autism from getting a vaccine that could prevent a disease that could cause an epidemic. People are forgetting the past. The history is going to repeat itself because people like you are not realizing what you are doing. If you don't let your child have a vaccine to prevent a disease and they catch it and there's a bunch of other kids that don't have the vaccine, that's going to spread like wildfire. It's going to become an epidemic again. Measles was wiped out in 2000 in the US and it could easily come back based on what you are doing with no scientific background. There's no logic in your reasoning, and you shouldn't be relying on other people's stories about their kids who just so happen to have autism while they got the vaccine, or after they got the vaccine, or before they got the vaccine, and they just so happen to be like, oh, now they don't have the vaccine, they have autism, now they're going to get the mumps, the measles, rubella, whatever it might be, they might get polio, have a screwed up back. You don't know what they're going to have, but based on people's stories, you're going to be like, oh no, that might happen to my kid, even though most likely it's not going to happen. You're just getting the world ready for a big outbreak in whatever disease you aren't vaccinated against. People are also saying that there's a rise in autism over the last 20 years, but 20 years ago, it used to be 1 in 10,000 kids were going to be born with autism, and now it's 1 in 150 kids are born with autism. Now, I know autism is a horrible thing, but it's not necessarily correlated to, oh, there's an actual rise in autism. No, there's just been a more generalized view of what autism is. There's a broader spectrum of what autism encompasses, and that is why it seems there might be a rise in autism, but not actually. It really kind of pisses me off, the ignorance that people have on these issues. I just want to say, you gotta rely on science, you gotta rely on evidence, you can't rely on anecdotal stories, because they're just stories, while the evidence shows there's no links between autism and vaccines, and the figure between the rate of autism in the 1990s to now, based on a full generalization of what autism has become. Nowadays, minor forms of autism are considered autism, while back in the day, in the 1990s, it might have been just treated as, nah, don't pay attention to it, we're not going to deal with it. That's why the rate has increased. There isn't an actual clear increase in autism cases, though. So my message today is just think logically and rely on scientific evidence, not just stories. Thank you for watching. Tell me what you think about the anti-vaccine movement, and have a great day. So apparently I am very scared of losing my beard, and I would say so. My beard has kind of become part of my identity.